Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse, where we discuss the latest DevOps news, AWS announcements, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. It's February 11th, 2026. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. Cloud Posse helps you get production ready in just 2 weeks by using our reference architectures for AWS, using Terraform and Atmos, our framework for IAC. So if you're curious to learn more about any of that, just go to cloudposse.com and click around. You'll find out everything we do. So how can you maximize today's session? First off, our format is informal. You can engage as much as you'd like. You can ask questions. And if you're curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos, this is a great place to ask. For those in the recording, we host these calls live, so don't miss out. You can register just by heading over to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, cloudposse.com/office hours, where you'll enter your email and then get an invitation to our weekly Zoom call. So with that said, let's jump into what caught my attention this past week. First one was something trending on Hacker News today, I believe. Somebody whipped up a operator for Kubernetes. So if you're not familiar, operators are what kind of give Kubernetes superpowers. Superpowers, if you think of Kubernetes as a cloud framework, operators are little things that plug into that act autonomously when certain events happen. So Renovate has been around forever. Renovate is a SaaS service, but you can also self-host it. You can also run it as a GitHub action. It's a way to automatically open pull requests, or so it was, for your services when a new version is available. What this Renovate operator is doing, I believe, is patching your Kubernetes manifests on your cluster as you go. So if that's how you roll, that's how you roll. And then that's a lot easier. To me, I don't know, this automatic updates at the Kubernetes level, it's yeah, call me an old fart. That sounds scary to me. I'd like a standard promotion process where things burn in lower environments. We have version control so we can see what's changing across everything. Using Kubernetes as your source of truth, that doesn't resonate with me. But yeah, is it, or is this host? Yeah, I don't know. If this is, I assumed it's just patching your resources in the cluster. I don't think it's opening pull requests. Yeah, no mention of pull requests. All right, if I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected. Any thoughts on this one, Ben?
I mean, they have in Kubernetes, they have the idea of what was it, the last applied field.
Hmm.
It's not great, but it's a way to, I guess, I'm with you on this. GitOps and use GitHub and actual pull requests, don't just patch the resources. But
Maybe inverse the paradigm. Instead, you have like this deployed, you have Flux, and Flux is synchronizing everything to Git. So,
yeah, you'd be developing through the UI then of Renovate as a, well,
well, no, I think this is just a visualization. You
I,
see what's
I just
happening.
mean your repo then is managed by your interactions with the UI.
Yeah.
Be an interesting way to do it.
All right. Next one was Mitchell Hashimoto, he started a new open source project called Vouch. And it's an experiment, you could say. It's a trust experiment. And it solves one of the biggest problems we have right now in open source. That's only getting worse. So open source survives on trust, and yet you really have no idea who's contributing what. There's no like vetted social network, if you will. And if you remember that whole incident with the XV repo uh, having a critical backdoor installed, that was in part because the maintainers they couldn't keep up with it. There was somebody who'd been contributing pull requests regularly and reliably, only for them to take the opportunity to breach that trust and inject a backdoor. Fortunately, some security researchers found that very quickly, and that's one of the beautiful things about open source, but it's not scalable, not at the rate that people on my LinkedIn feed are vibe coding weekend open source projects. So this is how do you now know who's actually contributing to the open source projects themselves and who vetted that person. So I'm not sure how the whole system works from an implementation standpoint. As you know, he has his own open source project called Ghosty, which is a very efficient, very performant terminal emulator. And he's trying this whole system out with Ghosty to see if they can scale contributions. Which makes me think of this project, as you guys have obviously heard of, OpenClaw, formerly Moltbot, formerly CloudBot. Um, it is phenomenal to see how many issues in this project are being opened per minute, not like per hour, per minute. And this is actually on the lower end right now. I've come here and I literally just see a stream of tickets coming in. And this is of issues. And then, pull request, it's kind of the same. Like, because everyone's using their open cloud to also probably patch fix and promote that fix. So how do you vet a community this large? How do you vet something where you have 185,000 stars and and 31,000 forks, right? That might be working on this and contributing patches upstream. The time seems like we need something like Vouch. I'm not sure if Vouch is can work. I don't know if a social trust network is enough, but
Can you go back to vouch for a second?
yeah.
I'm wondering if it's just one person has to vouch for another and everyone's using CloudBot, one CloudBot gets in and it spreads the virus.
Yeah, yeah. And then Cloudbot starts selling vouchers on
Yeah.
Multbook or whatever it
I
is.
mean, it sounds like a kind of a great idea with, you know, all these AI contributions now, and you have no idea if they're created with malicious intent or not.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to solve it.
And every PR is like, a few thousand lines long, so it's hard to vet it all. Any thoughts on Vouch? Any more thoughts? All right. What was I going to say related to that, if anything? Nah. All right. Moving on. So I thought this was interesting. We're going to cover GitHub Actions early February 2026 updates, but this is kind of like a Skunkworks projects that they're working on. And it's interesting. You know, I think they're rethinking how they could maybe leverage the whole GitHub Actions platform to power agentic style workflows. And if any of you have been playing around with OpenClaw or any of the similar systems, it's basically just scheduled prompts and actions and reactions to prompting. And here they have an example of how I believe it's powered under the hood by one GitHub action right now that knows how to read Markdown. But let me let's see, where's the best example here? No, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me go to my example I had here. So the project itself is using the project itself. The repo is GitHub slash GHAW, and it's an extension. It works as two parts. It's an extension to the GitHub CLI, which is, has a plugin ecosystem, so you can install the Agentic workflow plug into it. And then you can now start defining all of your workflows as GitHub actions with front matter. And there's a formal spec for what that front matter is. So it's slightly imperative up here, right? When it should run. It's not being interpreted by an AI. But then here is the standard prompt that you want it to do. And then that prompt can use skills and can use tools and can import other skills, you could say, or instructions at least here. And I hope one of the most annoying things with GitHub is all your workflows have to be in this folder and it doesn't support nesting. So I hope this will be the thing that finally gets GitHub to start supporting nested folders under the workflows. But they've gone to town here, defining skills for different agentic workflows. And I think that it's really interesting if you think about like you can create a workflow like this that does periodic security audits or periodic regression tests or periodic been given instructions to do things periodically. But it doesn't have to be period based. It can be chat based. You can talk or you can use the at symbol in a pull request or an issue to give instructions to the agent, and that agent then runs a workflow. So, any thoughts on the direction here?
Are those these agentic workflows, are these like configured in your user settings? I assume it's organization enabled. So, or is it fully released to GitHub already?
I admit I could not figure it out by their I couldn't imagine that they implemented it into the GitHub Actions core yet, but the way they write it, it is. And then I was trying to see, I would assume that somewhere right now they're shimming it in with a GitHub Action workflow. So they do have in this workflows folder, they do have some YAML workflows. Those are lock files. Thought I saw. uh, Maybe I was tricked by the .lock.yaml when I was scanning this earlier. Here, lint check, license check. Those are just regular workflows. Anyway, what I was expecting to see was somewhere basically an action that proxies to the GitHub CLI and runs the workflow, rather than changing the GitHub Actions core, which I have to imagine is a much more radical change.
I wonder if this could be used in migrations. If you have a big repo with a lot of Atmos components, you could say, you could tell the workflow to, you know, periodically run, make sure that there's no drift first, which is the precondition. And then if there is no drift, I don't know, I guess you'd want it to open a PR and propose changes and then have that run, but maybe you could have it, as part of a migration effort of doing something.
But yeah, what if Terraform modules came with a migration markdown file kind of, or Terraform components came with that, or our reference architecture came with basically and agentic instructions like that, and it does its best job to try and follow the migration path to upgrade it. I mean, it's a really hard problem to solve in general migrations, and AI might not be a bad proxy for.
Yeah. And it would be slightly better than renovate renovate or whatever you have for auto updating components. Um, that just checks every once in a while, check to make sure you're not on, or check to see if you're not on the latest. And if you aren't, try to update. But this would be further of checking your live Terraform state to make sure you're not, making a giant plan on something that already has drift. So
Yeah,
do a pre-check of drift is essentially what I'm saying.
I admit I'm not entirely following on that one, but but I think it is an interesting case, like for updates as one of the use cases that you can tell it to perform an update.
Yeah.
So no more chatter on this one, huh? No one else. I thought this was really cool, actually. I was looking into something similar with Claude because you can run Claude as a GitHub action. So I was going to set up Claude to do periodic updates for us on something, open pull requests. All right, so GitHub Actions has published a newsletter with some of the things that have improved in GitHub since the new year. One of them is they now provide an SDK, if you will, a Go module that talks that understands the whole scale set implementation, which is how the Actions Runner controller works for Kubernetes. But if you've ever tried to use Actions Runner controller on Kubernetes, it's not a lightweight thing to optimize if you're operating in a busy team environment. So what this opens the door for is more bespoke schedulers. And this is interesting because, well, you'll remember at the end of last year, I believe it was, GitHub announced that they were going to start charging a very nominal per minute platform fee for self-hosted runners. Well, they ended up rolling that back, and that was very nice of them. But I could totally imagine, though, that this would be an incentive for them to do that because as more and more providers of custom schedulers for GitHub Actions move workloads off of GitHub itself, that might be this might enable that. But then they'd be making less money. So yeah, I'm trying to understand the rationale there. Another important thing is that it used to be an enterprise setting on GitHub Actions that you could not allow list certain actions for your I don't know if this is at an organizational level or, I mean, enterprise at organizational level for this new free team and enterprise and team plans being able to configure this. I don't know if this is per repo or at your organization level, but it is a much recommended thing to do because even if you use composite actions, those composite actions can also call other actions, and unless you're allow listing, you really have no idea what you're entrusting to read your code and perform actions. So this is a nice thing that they're doing to reduce some of the supply chain vulnerabilities in the GitHub Actions ecosystem, especially since probably I'm guessing like 98% of people are on a team plan or below. All right, that's all I got on that one. And Windmill. So I think I saw this last week at some point. It was trending on Hacker News. And the project has about 15,000 stars. And if I understand it correctly, it they build themselves almost as an internal developer platform, but I don't know if that's the best description of what they do. Um, they are somewhere in between what you could do with a backstage, but not backstage, and N8 Nathan, N8N, but not Nathan. It lets you basically expose your scripts and tools to webhooks in a consistent manner. So now your services become endpoints, not just scripts. And then now you can integrate those with your IDP, with your internal developer platforms like Backstage. That's how I understand it. Anybody have a better understanding of how Windmill works? Anyways, I think it's looks interesting. I can see a use case for it. Uh, for example, imagine you are a enterprise SaaS service. You have dedicated tenant instances. When somebody signs up, you want to spin up one of those instances. You're using under the hood Terraform to do all of that. You could orchestrate something that does a pull request and gets an approval and merges that, and that's not a bad thing. Or you could use something like Windmill that exposes an API endpoint that when you trigger it with some parameters and presumably some auth, then it does that operation for you. So it makes services that are not endpoints feel like API endpoints.
The pricing doesn't look bad. It looks like they have free cloud hosted as well.
Hmm.
Self-hosted, great. I would kind of hope that for testing things
And
out. But they also have cloud, which is also has a free section.
so, okay, so this is self-host.
Yeah. But I mean, like
But,
scroll.
but yeah, this one here is it's still, yeah, the pricing is not
Well,
crazy either.
Further scroll up though. Go to the cloud tab
Ah, got it.
section
Missed
where
that.
they host it too, which is interesting.
Yeah. Wait, so self-hosted, free and open source, enterprise for advanced needs. Okay, gotcha. One thing I didn't do was check see what license they're under. Why don't I see it? AGPL. Oh, Apache or what? Or? Hmm. So I guess some components of this project are licensed AGPL, I guess. Anyways, careful with AGPL. Next, I like this. This resonated with me because I've been working on something similar, a little bit more elaborate than this, but I do like the simplicity of how they implemented this. And it's something I would want, I hope, over the coming weeks, maybe somebody on the team can spend some time with. So here's the problem that we run into. With Cloud Code, Cursor, etc., it is accelerated enormously the velocity at which we can implement features, document those features, release those features. But it is really hard to validate all of that by hand and manually. And it's also hard to write tests to cover all of it. I know because we've been writing a lot of tests lately. Our test coverage on our Atmos project went from beneath 20% at the beginning of last year, and it hit 76% this week. And yet we still have a lot of problems. Yeah, you could say 24% uncovered tests, right? But I don't know. I think it's more than that because sometimes it's about does the thing do what you wanted it to do, not just do the functions empirically work the way they are programmed to work. And what he's done is developed a little CLI called Showboat that your agent works together with using a skill, and it documents itself using the tool the way your tool was supposed to be used by following the documentation that the tool has. And I think that's an interesting way. So then you as a reviewer can review that markdown in plain English, see what it tested, what it was trying to do, and what the outcome of those commands were. Something similar to it's almost like if you're familiar with VHS by Charm Bracelet, but taking a more basic approach around Markdown to define it. And it's a small little Go utility that they also distribute awkwardly through. Has UVX become like a universal package manager now for all tools? Because I see a lot of references lately to UVX, even for non-Python projects.
I see it a lot too. And I'm seeing it more and more, and
Yeah.
I guess it's just a fast way to ship things.
Oh, and then there was a Rodney, which was a companion to Showboat, which helps you test and validate things that are in the browser, as you can see here. All right, next. Yeah, let's see. Do we have Yves here? No. Did anyone get this announcement for entire? So the was it one of the was it the former CEO of GitHub left, started a company. They raised a tiny little $60 million seed round at a $300 billion valuation, and this is what they're coming out with. And as much as I can gather about it, it is rethinking what Git is in a post-agentic world where most of the commits are not actually done by humans. And how do you maintain the lineage and relationship between those commits and the product itself somehow? And that's pretty hand wavy because I don't understand it. Can somebody explain why this is a $300 billion problem?
I think based on if you start go scroll down to the never start from zero, that kind of looks like more of what it's trying to solve, which is since the AIs are going to be creating the commit messages, use those commit messages as context.
Ah.
See, if you scroll down a little bit more, it kind of shows the 0, 1, 2, 3 of like uh
Mhm.
yeah. So this is I don't know. I'm just reading this site. It's like it seems like it's like why did we write it this way? So every commit message is not only a checkpoint but some kind of context that
Yeah, yeah.
or some way that's I guess better.
That's pretty cool. No, I like that. I can see that. That is kind of interesting. Because one of the things we've lost through agentic development is a lot of the institutional knowledge of why things were developed the way they were developed because somebody basically insourced through AI wrote it, right? So if every little change and the context surrounding that change and the instructions were recorded along with that change in perpetuity, that would be interesting because you can kind of reconstruct the intent throughout the process.
And it's always there as opposed to Claude.md, agents.md,
Hmm. Yeah,
all the
yeah.
other .mds. You have it as a Git history, which is almost universally used.
This is where, though, I think this would be a really interesting application, though, of Git annotate, which is built into Git already. And if every commit you're annotating it with the prompt or the context or following whatever the best practices they've kind of arrived at, why don't we just build this into using what Git supports today? Would our Git be too large? Is that the assertion? I don't know.
Hmm.
So there's Git annotate. There's also Git note, I believe, and these are built into Git, ready to use today. And it's metadata basically associated with the objects themselves. So, all right, let's see. Chat. Nothing in the chat. Well, that's all I got for today. Any other interesting discussion topics, news or announcements before we go to Q&A? All right, Q&A it is. All right, any questions we can discuss today on the show? This is an open-ended period. Anything goes. If you've been having any or come across any interesting articles or been pondering anything, good place to ask. If you're doing anything with AI, you want to share your workflows and what's working for you, that's a good time to do that.
Is anyone using tofu instead of Terraform? Does that come up often?
Oh yeah. I mean, these days in our circles, right? Tofu comes up more commonly than Terraform. That's obviously not indicative of the market as a whole, but when you work within open source, when you work within like our module ecosystem and things like that, a lot of people are definitely using OpenTofu.
Yeah, that's what we're using.
Any rough edges there for you, or has it been pretty smooth?
It's been pretty smooth. I mean, I can't say I don't know if it's diverged enough yet to really cause issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I'm hoping they come out with, I wasn't 100% sure if I saw this in the activity on OpenTofu or not, but I thought Terraform Actions was a pretty interesting concept for non-stateful operations. So I'm wondering, has anybody seen any announcements on Tofu supporting actions?
Hmm, I haven't.
Yeah, Terraform actions were announced at the HashiConf last year. So I think those were cool. All right. One thing that came out that I've really liked. So you know, on the show, I talk a lot about the tool that I really like using called Conductor. Ben is laughing. You know, I have as much as I love it, I haven't been the best at convincing everybody to stick with it. But let's see, I can't find the actual window, so I'm just going to share my whole screen here. So one of the nice things that came out with Conductor is now you can group all of your work by the things that are in progress across all your repositories. So I have dozens of repositories, and I have 38 features in flight, but not at any given time, right? Like I'm really focused on a few things at once. So now you can change the status of what you're working on into these swim lanes and be laser focused on getting those things over the line. I found myself constantly trying to navigate between, all these 38 different features, which was even more before we just merged a bunch. Um, and it's been really good since I've been using this for the past week now. And also all the rate limit issues and the performance issues have gone down significantly for me in the product after using this. If you've seen Claude's new code functionality in their desktop app, if you've seen the same thing Codex did in their Mac desktop app, it's all heavily, I think, inspired by what they're doing here in Conductor. One of the interesting differences with Conductor is that you can use both Claude and Codex. All right. Any questions on Conductor? All right. Any other things we can discuss on the show today?
Does anybody have any success with N8N using that for you're laughing. Does that come up or
Well,
have you guys using it?
yeah, I always want to, and then there's always like some security vulnerability, and I think there was just
Right.
one the past week, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm kind of glad I haven't yet. Um, yeah, no, I'd be curious to see how people are using N8N. I mean, we have hundreds of Zaps, but in the end, never ended up using like self-hosting Natin or going their cloud route. Was there a use case you were considering?
I mean, I was looking at it. It was nothing. I just was looking at it for some automation stuff, and it just
Did
didn't
you
seem
see,
like a
did you
lot of
see
people.
the Windmill thing we brought up earlier on office hours? I don't know when you
I
joined.
came late. No, I didn't see
Ah,
it.
okay. So this might be kind of interesting. This is trending on Hacker News today. And the way I understand it is it's not quite as full blown as something like N8N, and it's not focused on becoming like an internal developer platform like Spotify. But if
Hmm.
you use something like Backstage by Spotify, you still need endpoints to call. But Terraform is not an endpoint, right? And your scripts are not endpoints. So if you want to turn these non-API driven workflows into API endpoints, Windmill seems to be a tool to do that. And it looked pretty nice. It's also open source and you can self-host it. So the example I gave earlier was like if you have a multi-tenant SaaS app and you need to bring up a tenant that's run provisioned by Terraform, this might be one of the ways you do that.
I will definitely have to take a look at that.
Yeah. All
I
right.
was looking at N8N for for sock gathering requirements, trying to piece together like it's such a nightmare. And even that last tool that you were talking about where they're putting all the uh for GitHub and like,
Yeah,
it seemed like it might be like trying to maybe piece together where you do audits and stuff and you can get a better idea of when people ask questions, it's more connected.
I think this could be really interesting when you think about it in terms of compliance and having it continuously gather evidence and stash it somewhere.
Yep.
That would be an interesting use case, yeah.
But every year gathering all that evidence is a nightmare.
Yeah. What side of that are you involved with?
We're a lending company, so we have to be SOC compliant every year, and it's I probably do 90% of the evidence gathering for
Yeah.
all everything. So
But you and are you not using a platform like Drata or Vanta?
I tried to bring Vanta in, and we've gone through like three compliance department changeovers, and I just couldn't get them
Yeah.
to commit to Vanta because if I mean it is a tough tool to set up and get running, but once you get Vanta running, it's absolutely amazing. But they just wouldn't
Yeah.
commit to it. Yeah.
That sounds like a compliance risk. I would
Yeah.
flag that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm back to like old school gathering screenshots and I was trying to connect things and automate some things that we could automate.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Cool. Hey, Paul. Were you the one who posted the great write-up on uh, in this AWS channel on how to optimize costs on AWS?
That was me. I liked what you. I liked the way you kicked off that introduction. Is the gentleman who raised the question here on office hours? I think we should definitely invite him. I'm sure others would have some tips for him. I know Corey and Duckbill from way back, so I recommend them highly. But I also am more a self-help kind of person, and my own work I try to demystify this stuff. Like I posted a write up about S3, like really understanding how it works. It's completely different from other things that have been written about it. So I much prefer the self-help tools that people can use. And I think there's no alternative to learning it yourself or having someone on your staff who understands that you can't just call a
Yeah.
consultant one time.
Yeah, you got to at least own enough of it, have enough mental mind share over it to know what you need to do. But yeah, I've seen this fail many times. Just buying a bunch of RIs and instead it locks you into those instance types and very rigid, and you can't go into other regions and so forth. So I thought that was good. Yeah, so if what I'm referring to, actually, I can share here now. This is actually kind of cool. I didn't think about using it this way. So this past week or so, we released our Slack archives, or we rehomed them. So now they're on cloudposse.com. If you go into the Slack/archive, and you can go to all of our channels. And this was the conversation that I was thinking about here. Paul responded, but thank you for that. Yeah, so I don't see Charlie on this chat here. Oh, looks like the problem right there. Cool.
If I could mention, do check out the S3 write-up that is also in the AWS channel, a little up from about a week before for people who have questions. I would really love feedback about that, and anybody who has questions about these issues too. I'd love to answer questions.
Let's see here. Oh, here, this one here. Okay, I'll post this in the Zoom chat here,
Thank you.
and you can see that. All right. Well, if there's no other questions today, we can always wrap up a little early. Last call for questions. All right. Well, can't speak. We will be back next week, same time, same place. If you haven't yet registered for our live office hours, you can do so by going here to cloudposse.com/office hours, and you'll get an invite to your inbox. All our videos are posted to YouTube, and we also have our Slack community where you can ask questions and get answers. So please check that out. And do subscribe for our newsletter. We should be having an issue coming out pretty soon. Also, if you're interested in any commercial support from Cloud Posse, all of our open source is supported by us. That's how we operate as a open source company. So if there's anything we can do to accelerate initiatives at your organization, do reach out. Go to cloudposse.com/support. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.